so we have beans here that have already been snapped and cut down and rinsed really well. And then we have our jars soaking with hot soapy water. It's really important to start with sterilized jars and to be as clean as possible. I have my lid sitting in here in boiling water. This is keeping them sterilized and clean. Since they're going on our jars, they need to be as clean as possible. So welcome back to the Blueberry Homestead. Today we're going to be canning green beans. Every year I like to grow an organic garden, and this year was no different, except I added more plants than usual. So I have quite a few green bean plants that have been producing. I got about half a bushel this week. So we are going to small batch can green beans throughout the summer, and so that's what we're going to do today. A few things that you need to have to get started are a wide mouth funnel, you need a magnetic lid lifter, and vinyl coated jar lifters. So I purchased a kit like this several years ago from our local farm market, and so it had everything in there. So I can post the link to this at the bottom in the show notes so you can see what I'm using. We are canning in regular mouth quart jars, so you need the regular mouth bands and you need lids. You can use these ball lids, or I like to use the Tatler reusable lids. I can post the link to that below as well. Our pressure canner here, you have to pressure can green beans. They cannot be water bath canned because of the low acidity in them. So you need one with a good pepcock and a gauge. Some Instapots are suitable for pressure canning. I am using the All-American pressure cooker. This is decades old. And so I can post the link to that in the show notes below as well. We have some water boiling, and we also have our lids in the boiling water back here, staying nice and hot and sanitized. You want to make sure your jars are sanitized. If you don't have a dishwasher, you can just fill them with very hot soapy water and let them sit until you're ready to put the beans in. We've already snapped, sorted, and rinsed really well our green beans. So you're also going to want some kosher salt. Don't just use regular iodized salt from the store, as that is not suitable for canning. Let's get started. You're going to take your first clean warm jar. You're going to put about a teaspoon of kosher salt in the bottom. You're going to use your funnel, and you're going to start packing the beans in. Okay, once you have it just about full, you're going to take your funnel out, and you're going to fill it with a little more than 2 cups of hot water. And this should leave about an inch of headspace at the top. Headspace means the empty space between the water and the top of the jar. And you're going to want to grab a clean, dry towel, wipe the edges just to make sure there's nothing sitting there that could prevent the lid from sealing during the canning process. Use your lid lifter, grab your lid, carefully place it on the top. You don't want to touch anything at this point, and you're going to put your band on. As you screw the band on, you don't want to over tighten it, just tight enough to keep that on there. The jar is hot because of the hot water. You're going to use your jar lifters. You're going to lift it up and carefully set it in the pressure canner. And then you're going to work on your next jar. When you set your jars in the canner, you want to make sure that there's enough space between each one so that they're not touching. If they are, I'm going to just adjust them a little bit so that they cook evenly. All right. Now we're going to put our lid on. Okay, we're going to twist to secure it. Okay. You're going to tighten down the lid. Okay. All right, you're going to turn your stove up. You're going to start heating up that canner. And for quarts, you're going to process at 11 pounds for 25 minutes. Okay, so as your water starts heating up, it's building up steam pressure inside, and you'll start to notice your gauge moving. This is the pressure building. Let's see if we can get it to show. It's kind of a slow process. So after it gets past the 10 to the little line representing 11, I'm going to turn my stove down, and I will set the timer for 25 minutes, and I will then sit here and watch it. I will probably need to be adjusting my stove, turning it from, medium to medium high to keep the pressure at 11 pounds. But I will be sitting in here for the next a good 30 minutes watching it to keep it at 11 pounds of pressure for 25 minutes. Pressure canning is like the second level of canning. If you first are starting to water bath can, once you get a hang of that, then pressure canning is your next step. There's so many things that you cannot process with water bath canning. So when you learn to pressure can, that will increase your availability to can and preserve more things on your homestead. All right, let's talk about pressure canning, and let's dispel some of the myths behind it. I'm sure we've heard on the internet and the news plenty of stories of pressure canners being made into bombs, or Great Aunt Millie blowing up her kitchen from a pressure canner. All those things are possible, yes, but that's because too much pressure has built up in the canner. As long as you are diligent and paying attention, that should never happen. Modern pressure cookers today have a lot of safety features. There's gauges. I think there's even electric pressure canners that moderate the pressure for you, and you don't have to be as diligent as watching. I prefer this American Standard older pressure canner. It's decades and decades old, but it works great. It has a well-functioning gauge, and we have my pepcock here for releasing pressure if it gets too high. But I know the days that I'm pressure canning, I'm going to be sitting in my kitchen, I'm going to be watching diligently, making sure the pressure doesn't build up too high, and I'm going to watch it, and it's going to turn out perfectly. It has pretty much every single time. Never had my kitchen blow up. I've never even come close. So don't be scared. Pressure cooking, it really is the next level to canning. And it takes you into a different area where you can start really putting up and preserving so many more things for your pantry. Okay, we're at 11 pounds of pressure. I'm now going to set my timer for 25 minutes, and I'm going to watch it. I'm going to turn my heat down to between medium high and medium, and I'm going to watch it. I'm going to sit here in the kitchen, and I'm going to watch my gauge. I'm going to make sure it stays at 11. and that it doesn't go any lower. If it goes up 12, 13, that's perfectly fine. You do not want it to go lower than 11 pounds because it needs to process for safety at 11 pounds for 25 minutes. So we're gonna sit here. Pressure canning does not need to be scary. I initially learned how to water bath can from my mom, who learned from her mom, who learned from her mom. However, I taught myself to pressure can last year. So there's tons of resources online, and I'll include in the notes below the USDA guidelines for pressure canning, because the most important thing about canning is that you do it with cleanliness and that you do it at the recommended time and pressure to avoid any bacteria growing, because botulism is a serious thing. You cannot see it or smell it, and so it's really important to follow all the guidelines. So I will include that in the notes below so that you can check out the USDA site and the guidelines for that. Okay, the time's up. I am turning my stove off. The pressure is still at about 12 pounds. I'm going to leave the top on. I am not going to vent it. I'm going to just let it sit, and I'm going to let it vent and depressurize naturally over the next couple hours. Once it's completely depressurized and we are at 0 pounds of pressure, I will then open the lid. I will carefully take the jars out. I will take the bands off, and I will let them sit for 24 hours. So for now, we are just going to let it sit. We're not going to touch the top at all. We're going to leave everything the same. We're just going to let it depressurize naturally. Okay, so the pressure is at 0, so I have taken off the locks, and now I'm going to take the jars out. Okay, it's been just over 24 hours. All the jars have sealed. To let you know that they are sealed, this bubble on top should be indented. Let's see if you can kind of see it. No, you can't, but it's indented here. As it's sealing, you'll hear it popping. And so now we will just take these bands off. And then another way to see if it's sealed, you can just kind of try to lift it gently with your fingers. And as long as it doesn't open, then it's sealed. So I will, on these jars, it gives a nice little spot for the date right there. So I will write the date on here and then put it in my pantry. I'm gonna put it somewhere that's generally dark. It's pretty even temperature, and they will store for at least a year. However, in our home, they will not make it that long. So I hope you found this helpful, and I hope that it helps you to get started with your journey of pressure canning. If you have any questions, pop those below. Give us a like and a share if you find this beneficial and you think your friends will be benefited as well. And thanks for watching.